Bullshit.
It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm Dave Mastovich, CEO and founder of Massolutions, the world's only no bullshit marketing firm. And I'm also the introductory voice for Maria Marhevka. She doesn't like to do the open, even when she's going to drive the entire show. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. Probably the biggest sporting event, one of the biggest sporting events of the year, in more ways than one. You know, a lot of people watch it for the actual game, but a lot of people watch it for the ads in between the play. And it's surprising because a lot of the time when we see ads, their heads are down on a phone. But I think this is the one day, the few hours where people actually fully give their undivided attention to the Super Bowl ads. So to kind of kick things off, let's just put it all into context that for this year's Super Bowl, a 30-second spot is valued at $5.6 million. So it's a very large investment for these brands to be shelling out, nearly $6 million for 30 seconds of, the consumer's attention. But it's a big play for them. So what do you think? Do you think that that's a smart usage of a company's budget? What are your overall thoughts of just the Super Bowl ads in general?
To go back a little bit of history, the Super Bowl ads began to become huge probably in the early 80s. It's not to say that the first 15 or so Super Bowls that the ads weren't important. They were, but they became more of an event in the 80s. And I think the 1984 commercial, aired in the Super Bowl, and that's one of the all-time, if not the all-time greatest commercials out there. You have the Joe Green commercials, the Coca-Cola commercials. But even beyond that, there's so many great ones. And I should even say the mid-'70s to late 70s, because I remember the Joe Namath, Farrah Fawcett one, and I did the top 50, in my opinion, for 50th Super Bowl. So it's evolved over time, and once we hit with the internet and the quick social media getting the word out, you saw that things were leaking. So what happened in the last 5 years is the brands saw that as an opportunity. Instead of worrying that a commercial leaked or something of that nature, the brands started to say, let's actually take this and make it even more to our advantage. They started leaking or teasing them. So now you see most of the commercials that are going to air are teased. And what that does is creates a buzz this week, like we're doing, and we've already done with our blog. And all across the country, people start teasing them, and some people even show the full commercial beforehand. So it's a different game. It's evolved over time, as it should, based on what the technological opportunities are. So it has become even more of a strong thing to tease it and showcase it, and then to have it during the game, and then the week after the game have it dissected. That's all great for the brands. Your question is, what do I think about it from a marketing strategy? I think it's such a great vehicle to achieve reach, to achieve the huge amount of reach, and that's obvious. I'm not saying anything that people out there don't understand. It is limited to those people that can A, afford it, and B, primarily need branding. And that's why year after year after year, you see the beer commercials, most notably Budweiser. You see the soda commercials, Pepsi and Coke. You see things like this year, TurboTax, which has a little bit different. They not only need to brand, they need to kind of convince us to use this product instead of going to somebody else. That's why you see so many of those bigger brands using it for branding, because number one, most companies in the world can't afford a $5 million or whatever investment. Right. And number two, if you did try to sell one thing, it's going to break the internet. And number three, it's going to do the most for your brand. If you do that commercial, it's remembered that you're strong enough to have done a commercial in the Super Bowl. So those are my thoughts about the best ways to use it is obviously about the way it is being used by these big name brands who are primarily for branding. They're not business to business. They're business to consumer, and they already have an existing brand, and they want to continue to keep that brand going.
That's very true. And I think another aspect of that is if you're going to buy these ads, you pretty much have to have all of your ducks in line in your marketing play as a whole, because like we've seen, like I think, was it the 84 lumber that really drove a lot of attention?
Well, that's near and dear to my heart because two of my friends are involved with that, and Scott Morgan of Bruner is the president, and then Jeff Maggs was the chief I think chief client officer at the time, but he's now running the Atlanta office. And big congratulations to Jeff, who I've known for years and coached against his kids and so forth. They and a whole team of people at Brunner put this together, and it broke the internet. It achieved its goals of taking a regional brand of 84 lumber and making it national, if not just for a day or a week or a couple of weeks, because they took a stand. They did a controversial commercial. They did a political issues-oriented commercial, and they did it well, which they are strong at high-end creative like that. Got the word out, and they did break the internet. I just watched a video of Jeff Maggs being interviewed by the Atlanta Business Journal there, and it's a great interview, and it's just a compelling, humbling story. Jeff's just a good guy, a Western Pennsylvania guy, grew up in the South Hills, lived in various places, Bethel, Peters, etc., and now is living in downtown Atlanta. And he tells the whole story about how their team got together and brainstormed and knew they were taking this risk, and they did this commercial that was geared towards the wall, and it did lead to 84 Lumber and Brunner's websites both pretty much going down for a brief time. But we'll put a link in the show notes to the video of Jeff being interviewed by the Pittsburgh Business Journal, not the Pittsburgh, the Atlanta Business Journal, and maybe a link to the ad. But Scott Morgan, the president there, great company here in town, and two great people that I know that are in my network.
Absolutely. And I know that this year, WeatherTech, the CEO, is doing an ad spot. It's called Lucky Dog. And basically the backstory of this is that his dog was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and there was like a 1% chance of survival. And so he took his dog to the University of Wisconsin-Madison Veterinary School, and they nursed him back to health. I mean, the tumor shrunk, I think they said, to pretty much nothing. So this year he's taking that story and using it for his ad called Lucky Dog. It's about his dog, Scout, and he's using it to build awareness and financial support for that veterinary school. And I think we usually see brands promoting themselves, but I think he almost hacked the system a little bit. And I think it was really smart with the feel-good story. Mm-hmm. But his name's attached to it. So what do you think about that?
I think it's really smart, and I think there's all kinds of value to it. And let's just say that let's take the totally altruistic thing. If he's 100% doing it because he has the wealth to spend $5 million on something like that and not have it impact his personal family and so forth, and he wants to do that to help this hospital that helped his dog, that alone is awesome, because when you're the super wealthy, the uber wealthy, I'd rather you do something that helps others. And then secondly, let's admit that it's probably not 100% because of that, because deep down there's probably a little bit, if not by him, his PR team at his company and his ad agency and his PR firm saying well, this is a no-lose. Our company gets mentioned because someone says, how could someone afford to do that? They have to be uber wealthy and they have to be a CEO. What company is he with? What's he all about? What's the dog look like? What's this guy look like? And so it's just there's wins all around for that. And I guess the first thing that starts it off with is you have to have enough disposable income that $5 million is disposable income.
That is crazy.
And that's
amazing.
That's the first point. So good for him. But then the fact that he's doing that for good, and he's helping something that he believes in, makes it just a good all-around play. So I don't want to imply that I'm being cynical. I'm just saying the reality of it is there are other gains. There are big gains for his personal brand and big gains for his company that made him enough money to be able to spend $5 million in that manner.
I'm right, and big gains for Scout, who is saved by the veterinary school.
Scout.
Yeah. And then, so another kind of topic of conversation that came up this week was obviously there was the untimely death of Kobe Bryant and his daughter on Sunday. And so that kind of affected, and we probably wouldn't have thought about that initially, but that affected a lot of the brands pushing out their teasers this week because they were kind of pulling back the reins because every news station was talking about this and it might not have just fit. And so I know Planters Peanuts. Sure. We know that Mr. Peanut died, and that was their ad, and so they're kind of pulling that back. They didn't want to they're reevaluating, is what they're saying.
And so wisely so. They just caught a horrible break. First of all, the horrific break is for all of us that we lost a legend and a person that was a great player and was charismatic, but also was a dad. And his daughter also died, and so did the 7 other people besides Kobe and his daughter. So that's the first, obviously, horrific thing. But they just had really bad luck that their creative was of someone of their character dying, and he actually dies from falling. So I think they just were in a situation that they were trying to be sensitive.
Right.
And so that puts them into where they've invested all this money and prepped for the Super Bowl and had to adjust on the fly, and that's really challenging.
Right, and I think that they were also saying that even this Sunday, they'll probably be maybe changing things around.
Yes.
Do you think that, brands will, show their support of Kobe and his family in some way? Or what do you think about that?
I'm expecting to see a whole lot of stuff Sunday from 8 in the morning till midnight tied to number 24 and to Kobe Bryant. I think you'll see something from players somehow, some way, before, during, or after the game. I think that some of his sponsors, where he was a brand advocate for, where he was paid to be their influencer, I think some of them will probably do some sort of tribute, and I just think it makes sense.
Right.
It's truly, in my lifetime, I've not seen anything like this, where there's someone who was one of the greatest who died in a horrific, tragic way. Roberto Clemente was brought up to me, and, I'm a Pittsburgh guy, and when I was a little kid, 4 or 5 years old, that happened. But I remember, all growing up, my dad talking about it and everything. But if you look at the case, he wasn't quite to the level of Kobe as far as one of the top 10 to ever do it, top 12 to ever do it. And he didn't have any kind of brand like Kobe, because that was before branding, even though he was a great humanitarian. So I just think the recognition across the world, this is the first time we've ever seen something like this of such a young age and such a horrific, quick, untimely death, that I think you're going to see all kinds of stuff on Sunday for it.
Right. And I agree. I think we'll be seeing, these brands really paying attention to that. To kind of round off this episode, now, if Massolutions were in the position to have a Super Bowl ad, what do you think that ad would be about?
The first thing is, if we're in the position to have a Super Bowl ad, I'm not going to be around here much, because we've made so much money that I'm like, hey, you guys go do it. I'm just going to say the final say on things. The second thing is, if we were going to do a Super Bowl ad, I would invest 6 or 7 figures, probably 7 figures, into 2 things: our web situation, so that we were able to handle the onslaught that we would get, and our sales and customer service team that we're going to be able to make the follow-up calls and touches to the people that reach out. Because we would do a commercial around, don't be a bullshit marketer. There are 8 reasons that companies become BS marketers. We'll help you avoid all 8 of them. And then we would very quickly, I'm making this up on the fly, we would very quickly show Law and Order as reason number 1. Number 2 would be wedding crashers. Number 3 would be Starbucks, Dunkin' Other. Number 4, the social network words matter, and so on down the line with those Mad Men, Silicon Valley. You'd see all of these ones that are tied to our 8 reasons, and that being in the 30-second or 60-second commercial would show people that, wait a minute, what do they mean Mad Men, Silicon Valley's reason number 5? What do they mean The Office is reason number 8? Why is Will Ferrell in there? What's strategery in there for? How's that one of the 8 reasons that company comes? I own a company. I want to find out, am I a bullshit marketer? So that would be our creative, and then we'd get an onslaught, and you and Benita and Marcel and Mike and the 20 people you've now hired under you, or the 50 you've hired under you, because we're now big and we have enough to spend on this ad, would have to be scampering about to cover all that. Meanwhile, what I would be doing in the box at the Super Bowl, I would have the TV on while I was at the Super Bowl, because obviously I could afford that.
Right.
And I'd be hanging out there, and I'd say, LeBron, come on over here and watch this. And we'd go and watch that together, and we'd go and have a drink.
Man.
And then I'd text you guys and go, you guys ready for this shit? Does that sound fair?
Get ready? I think so.
Okay.
I like how that plays out, definitely.
Good.
All right, so Sunday we're excited. We have a blog post which we'll include in the show notes as well, that kind of showcases the top 5 that we have so far. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more, so I think there's going to be some follow-up content from us to kind of give our 2 cents on the Super Bowl ads.
Absolutely. And as Maria always directs me, I'm now going to have to do the close for her.
Yes.
So thanks for listening to this episode of the No BS Marketing Show, recorded in our own studios in bold, beautiful downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.